In this video, we're gonna look at the pros and cons of moving to Millcreek, Utah. Now, if you're looking at moving to Utah, specifically in the Salt Lake Valley, Millcreek, Utah is one of the most desirable areas to be in, but of course, nowhere is perfect, so let's take a look at it. Guys, I'm Christopher McGee. I am the owner of Halcyon Real Estate. We are affiliated with the Keller Williams Utah Market Center here in Salt Lake City, Utah. I help people relocate from all over the states to right here. Let's look at the bad news first. Here are the possible cons to living in Millcreek, Utah. Number one, higher cost of living. Right now in Millcreek, there are about 75 homes available for sale, and they range in price all the way from like $280K for a 1-bedroom, 600 and something square foot condo, all the way up to $3 million for a beautiful third of an acre with a stunning view listing. Listed, by the way, by Scott Maruri and Kelly Favero, two great agents that I know. I'll tell you that $3 million listing is not an anomaly at all, particularly on the East Bench of Millcreek. Now, the current median price of a home in Millcreek comes to $625,000. So there's obviously a lot of room between the higher end and where most people are having an experience buying homes in Millcreek, but $625K is a little above the Salt Lake area median, and it's certainly above Utah's median overall. Another possible con to living in Millcreek is that you are on that East Bench and you are real close to the Wasatch Fault Line. This is a major fault line that has an earthquake, they say on average about once every 500 years, and they say that we are overdue for a significant earthquake here in the valley. And so being that close to a major fault line may be a major turnoff for a lot of folks, but if you move here and look at the bench, it's not a turnoff for a whole lot of folks. So the main fault line kind of splits right through Millcreek so that there's one part of it and there's a branch of it that comes out toward Highland Drive. So through Millcreek, the fault actually splits. There's a little bit of a branch of it where the shelf of the bench is where the main fault line is, but it comes out also in branches all the way out toward Highland Drive and basically runs along Highland Drive for quite a ways. And that's right through Millcreek. So depending on where you are in Millcreek and how much of an appetite you have for the risk of being in that proximity to a fault line, that may or may not be a big turnoff for you. Interestingly, when you look up the crime rates of Millcreek, they're a little bit higher than most of the other cities along the East Bench. And that's because Millcreek starts on the East Bench and it extends west into the valley. So it gets much closer to inner city like South Salt Lake. And that inner city is where the higher crime rate really is. So if you look at the map of how high the crime rates are with specific different kinds of crime in Millcreek, you see it's all in the west portion of the city. The closer you get to the bench where it's mostly just neighborhoods, the further away from any kind of crime you get. Another con to living in Millcreek is a common one throughout the Salt Lake Valley, honestly, and that is the winter air inversions that we get here. We're known for having air that can get pretty gross in the winter. So from about November through March, cold air can get trapped in the valley with warmer air above. So as temperatures fluctuate, we get it colder down here and warmer in the atmosphere above the valley because we've got these Wasatch Mountains on the east side of the valley and the Ochre Mountains on the west side of the valley, and they create this bowl where the Salt Lake Valley sits. There's not a lot of wind movement to generate any cleansing of the air if it just gets stuck, and we end up relying on a good storm to clean the air out. So in the winter, that inversion can get pretty bad sometimes. Final con we'll mention here is that there's not much in the way of a nightlife in Millcreek. So if that's important to you, the west side of Millcreek may be where you want to be, and good news is we're not that far from Salt Lake City proper and downtown if you want to be closer to that. Millcreek, I mean, wherever you are in Millcreek, it's going to be a pretty quick trip, either straight into downtown or to I-215 that wraps right into downtown. You're just going to be like 10 minutes away from wherever you might be in Millcreek. But yeah, nobody would call Millcreek a bedroom community really, unless you're isolating just the easternmost part of it. But whatever things there are to do in Millcreek is mostly not nighttime activities. So let's talk about the pros of living in Millcreek. And I'm gonna go right back to the first con that I gave, and that was higher cost of living. You know what? If there's a higher cost of living somewhere, that's because it's a desirable place to be. It's one of the hallmarks of why a lot of people want to be there. They don't want to be there because it's so expensive, right? But because there's a lot of people who want to be there, that's what makes the higher cost of living. That's what tells you that it's a desirable area. So a pro on top of this being a desirable area to live, yes, the cost of living is going to be up, but like much of Utah, the property taxes are significantly lower than the national median. National median is about 1.02%, where the median in Millcreek is actually 0.65%. So if we were to take the current median home price of a Millcreek home, $625K like we said earlier, and get that 0.65% for property taxes on it, that'll translate to a little under $3,800 a year on property taxes, just so you know. About that higher crime rate that we mentioned earlier, that is true that it exists. Like we said, it's kind of located in one area of Millcreek. It's not a proper reflection of the entirety of Millcreek. And if you want to be in the more bedroom area of Millcreek up on the east bench there, it's a perfectly safe neighborhood, just like the rest of Utah. Also, it's Utah, guys. There's not a lot of like roaming gangs. There's not a lot of violent crime here. Nobody moved to Utah and expected to be in the middle of a crime-ridden city, and that's not gonna happen. Now, Millcreek does experience that winter inversion that we talked about, but the good thing about being in Millcreek, if you've got to experience the inversion, is that you're right next to two major canyons for an easy escape, okay? You've got Millcreek Canyon right there on the bench, and then at the southern edge of Millcreek, you have Big Cottonwood Canyon. You get right up there to Brighton Ski Resort, and I think it's Solitude Ski Resort of Big Cottonwood Canyon. You're right there with that great proximity for skiing, for hiking. There's a bunch of popular trails up there for the summer. And you know, that outdoor lifestyle is one of the biggest reasons that people like being in Utah. Living with those mountains in your backyard is what you have if you're in Millcreek. You're not gonna like the inversion, but you're gonna have a quick, easy escape from it. And there may not be much in the way of nightlife here in Millcreek, but if you're trying to put your kids to bed and keep them asleep, you didn't want to live kitty corner from a bar with a lot of loud pumping music at night anyway, am I right? Nobody moved to Utah expecting a loud nightlife scene. We're not trying to be the next Miami. You're probably moving to Utah in a phase of life where one thing you're going to enjoy here is a nice, quiet neighborhood. You'll have quiet nights, great neighbors, and great views. There are plenty of things for families to do and plenty of great places to eat. We've talked about Beaumont before. I think I've mentioned Kobe Sushi before. I still have to get to Provisions, which everybody tells me is the best restaurant in Millcreek. There's plenty of great family activity options like Millcreek Commons. There's plenty of parks. And again, we're close to the canyons, so the hiking and the skiing that's available out there. You're not gonna be at a shortage of good things to do if you live here in Millcreek. As Mayor Sherry Jackson put it when we interviewed her a couple weeks ago, actually, if you live in Millcreek, you're just basically 20 minutes away from everything. You're 20 minutes away from downtown, or less than 20 minutes. You're 20 minutes away or less from the airport. You're 20 minutes away from world-class skiing, world-class hiking. You're 20 minutes away from most of what Salt Lake Valley has to offer. And if you have friends or family in Bountiful, which is just north of Salt Lake County, you're 20 minutes away from there as well. Okay, so do the pros outweigh the cons if you are interested in living in Millcreek? Let me know, hit me in the comments. I'll be happy to hear from you. We'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Bye-bye, bye-bye.